Hello, and welcome back to Aetheral Space 17.25 Beyond Bullseye Part 1. We are back.
We are back! It is Aetheral Space time. Everyone who's an Aetherhead in the chat, do me a favor real quick. If you haven't yet, because Tianoni has hyped this chapter up. This is the one. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go on Royal Road, and you're going to leave a review. Ideally a positive one if you've made it this far. But if this chapter sucks, you have to make it a thumbs down instead. Okay? So life or death for Aetheral Space hinges on the goodness of
Alternative plan.
17.25.
Aetherhead, spam Aether emotes in the chat.
What do you guys think? Life or death, Honey, or
Spam your Muzazi Bible thumps, please.
Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. Many years ago, May Mayakel was an empty person. It wasn't an uncommon affliction. On Hepox, things often ended up hollow. The desert planet had once been the home of the UAP's largest weapon refinery, but those glory days had long since passed. Now it was nothing but a polluted wasteland, filled with those gone mad and those without souls. May was one of the latter, following after one of the former. She walked alongside June and July, the three children pulling the sled containing most of their supplies. The stupid thing was meant to float, but one of the repulsors had gone the other night, and now it needed their help to pull it along. Her arms ached. They'd been at this for hours. Her dull gaze drifted to the head of their little procession, moving through the ravaged desert with purposeless purpose. With his oldest follower, January, by his side, Hearn's Undecember strode... So Undecember is real now?
Yeah.
We finally see him. Undecember wasn't that a character in the podcast?
Yeah.
Strode jauntily across the contaminated side, his wild white hair creating a recognizable silhouette. That's good character design. A golden rifle was strapped to his back, glittering in the sunlight. The old man often liked to boast
sharp and
of how
jagged silhouette. There you go.
There you go. No, I was making a joke because a character design class thing is like, if they have a recognizable silhouette, you did a good job. A golden rifle was strapped to his back, glittering in the sunlight. The old man often liked to boast of how his gaudy rifle had been the work of the Maker Guild's gunsmith, but May had seen him painting it at night. Even if it was a fake, though, the bullets worked just fine. Undecember was what people called a maniac. He often liked to tell stories of when he had been a hero to the people of Hepox, of when he had fought bandits and robbers to protect others, but if those stories had ever been true, they certainly weren't anymore. Now he was little more than a bandit himself, wandering the wastes with a gang of orphans. Maybe Hepox had just hollowed him out too. This was the sort of planet that allowed only the exterior of a person to survive. He had more lucid episodes, though, and when those came, he could even dispense what might have been wisdom. May often thought to the time he'd been showing them how to shoot. He'd hung a circular target from the branch of a withered tree and fired 6 times. Under the watch of a rippling sun, he'd landed 6 perfect shots right in the center of the target. When she'd asked him how he did that, he just giggled and replied, "The target don't mean nothing. The bullseye don't mean nothing. So long as what's beyond the bullseye is something you want to hit more than anything else, you'll land the shot every time." That was when May took a step to the side and saw what he meant. They weren't alone out on the plains. Undecember had built a reputation for himself over the last few years. Bounty hunters and lawmen were always trying their luck for the price on his head. Right before Undecember's demonstration, someone had been climbing off of a hoverbike on the horizon, facing their direction. Putting whether or not he'd truly been after the Calendar gang aside, he definitely wasn't now. Now he lay on the ground, his head a ruin, brought down by 6 perfect shots. Was, the Birthday Bandito part of the Calendar gang?
He wouldn't have been, no.
I feel like I've heard the word Calendar gang before. Maybe not. Maybe I'm imagining it.
I think that's from another media.
This should be 0.25, by the way, in your big header.
You spotted it. You get a Dragon coin.
Ding! What can I spend these on?
So when we reach the end of the story, you'll unlock the shop.
Get all my Dragon merch.
Yeah.
Aetheral Space 17.
You can get all sorts of perks for New Game Plus.
I get to buy the other Dragon's abilities for my new Dragon.
He starts. Charlie's already got it all.
Yeah, he's actually got Libra imaging.
Unlock perk means he knows he's going to rush from the start.
Aetheral Space 17.25, Beyond Bullseye, Part 1. Day 3. Hey there, said Gregory Hazard smugly. Hands up. His thing's like the monotone, right?
It's been a little monotone, but he's a little bit slick as well. He's a bit of a shithead.
Hey there, said Gregory Hazard smugly. Hands up.
That's it.
With a gun pressed against her back, May Miracle didn't have much choice. Slowly, she raised her hand, her gaze fixed straight forward. She could see the reflection of her captor and the reflection of the tank that surrounded this massive room. Gregory Hazard, the prisoner that had escaped during the chaos and serendipity. It looked like he'd fully thrown in his lot with Pandershi and Darkstar then. Hazard was wearing a thick white parka, blonde hair hanging low over his right eye, his lips quirked upwards in a smirk. The bright orange pistol he was holding May up with wasn't of any kind she'd ever seen. Probably a Pandershi original in that case. Thump, thump, thump. One by one, the remaining Sealy Rangers leapt up to the third level of the backup control center, repulsors in their boots propelling them high. Soon enough, 3 rifles had joined the pistol, keeping May in place. She took a deep breath. You seem surprised, Gregory said. Honestly, you shouldn't be. This was a really stupid plan. Did you... I assume you're...
Yeah.
Did your brain turn into mush after going 3 days without sleeping? May's mind worked as she listened to Gregory's words. She hadn't just gotten unlucky here. Hazard had been lying in wait. Judging from the angle he'd appeared from, there'd probably been some maintenance compartment in the auto brain. He'd been hiding there until May made her appearance. But the sky was strong. She'd seen that back on Serendipity, when everything had come to a close. He shouldn't have been able to see through her cloaking. How, then? May wasn't at her best. Her emotions were showing on her face, and Gregory's smirk spread further as he recognized them. Just because Pandershi isn't over in the UAP anymore, he said slowly, as if explaining something very simple to a baby. That doesn't mean he doesn't still have eyes and ears over there. If the Nowhere Woman is nowhere to be found, there's only so many places she could have gone, and there's only so many things she'd want to do here in Oberon. So it was a trap, she muttered. Obviously. Seriously, how stupid can you be? Seemed Gregory hadn't recognized May's biggest question from her expression, so she finally decided to voice it aloud. How did you see me? She asked. What's that? My ability, she snapped. Someone as strong as you shouldn't have been able to perceive me at all. Even if you were waiting for me, you shouldn't have been able to spot me. How? Oh, Gregory chuckled. That's easy. I've already been making preparations for getting rid of my Aether, so I just used that experience. I was able to reduce my infusion to the level of one of these weaklings. He nodded at the nearest Sealy Ranger. So I saw you just fine. Did you think we didn't know how your ability worked? Pandershi's put together files on all of you, Nebula. She took in a deep breath, her hands still up. So that's interesting. You mentioned he's been learning how to get rid of his Aether. Is that like... If you're an Aether user, does your Aether, like, is it hard to suppress it? Is it just always suffuse your body?
Like, you're used to using it at a certain point, so it's unlearning that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like Aether's like an invasive thing you have to concentrate to get rid of after. She took in a deep breath, her hands still up, her long shadow cast over the surface of the tank. Despite everything, though, despite having a gun to her back, despite her complete defeat, despite her impending death, her thoughts weren't on any of those things. Instead, what she kept thinking over and over again was, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? This isn't like me. This isn't how I am. This is just my job. I do it for the money and nothing else. There was no possibility of reward here. Why did I go out of my way to do all this? What was I thinking? It was a genuine question, aimed at herself. May Miracle was an empty person, or at the very least a person who didn't know her own interior. What was behind the bullseye she'd been aiming at tonight? Nobody else would tell her, and she couldn't tell herself. At any rate, the time for introspection had passed. In the reflection, she saw Gregory Hazard's index finger tighten around the lights went out. Bang, bang! The shots were simultaneous. As soon as the room was plunged into darkness, May Miracle whirled around. Even in this pitch-black space, she was confident in her aim. She fired her revolver at the exact same time Hazard fired his own weapon, and twin muzzle flashes illuminated the chamber for the briefest of moments. Neither of them were hit, however. The two bullets collided in midair, fused together by heat and motion, the gestalt ricocheting and lodging deep inside the railing. The room turned black again. Bang, 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 bang! 4 shots, 3 screams, 3 falling corpses. The remaining Sealy Rangers had been efficiently killed with 3 bullets, while the 4th, aimed at Gregory Hazard's head, had been deflected by a blade arm at the last moment. Blade arm?
Yeah, he folds his arm into a blade.
Oh, yeah. When the muzzle flashes died again, however, darkness did not
He's
return
LARPing as a Gene Tyrant.
Oh, yeah. Whatever miracle had turned off the power had come to an end. White light blazed around the chamber once more, but to the eyes of Gregory Hazard, May Miracle was no longer there. Gregory's crimson eyes flicked around, taking in the situation. He didn't know what had taken out the power for those couple of seconds. The timing couldn't have been coincidental. Something Miracle had arranged in advance. If it wasn't, she was certainly living up to her namesake. The power was back on now, but he'd be ready if it happened again. 4 bodies at his feet, 3 of them corpses. That had been some fancy shooting. May Miracle had managed to land 3 perfect shots in complete darkness. If she'd hit Gregory, too, it would have been a hat trick, but he wasn't incompetent enough for that to work. He pulled the melted bullet free from the railing and stuffed it in his pocket before looking down, one eyebrow raised. Scratch that. 2 corpses. The Sealy Ranger at Gregory's feet was still letting out a gurgling death rattle as blood poured from the hole in his neck. I'll say nothing.
Okay.
Gross. Gregory wrinkled his nose at the sight before looking up again to address the empty room. This is Gregory speaking, right?
Yeah.
How cruel, he called out, walking over the dying man's body. Don't you have a human heart? No response. After all, the room was supposedly empty, but Gregory knew better. May Miracle was still here. After all she'd done was reactivate her cloaking. Paper-white aether crackled around Gregory's body. In order to counter May Miracle's attack in the dark, he'd returned his infusion to its usual potency, but in doing so, he'd restored the efficacy of Miracle's cloaking on him. He could easily spot her again by just reducing his infusion. But if their positions were reversed, that was exactly what Gregory would want. He had no doubt that she had her gun trained on him, even now, ready to fire the moment he made himself vulnerable. With his infusion reduced to the minimum, one of those powerful revolver shots could bring about a serious, maybe even lethal wound. He couldn't afford to be careless. No. He would not lift his infusion yet. If he was her, then the thing he'd least want in this situation would be this. Gregory lifted his arm and tapped away at his wrist-bound script. Immediately, the white light all around shifted to a menacing red, and his secondary seal slammed shut over the doors. Deadlocked, Gregory explained, lowering his arm as he slowly walked across the walkway, circling the auto-brain and looking down at the room. I know you haven't already escaped since I didn't hear the doors open or close. Right now, your goal is to get out of here, isn't it? Let me tell you, the only way those doors are opening is with this watch. And just in case you're thinking you can use your cloaking to steal it off me or something. Click! He unclasped the script from around his wrist, lifted it high into the air by the band, and dropped it into his open mouth. Gulp. Some creative folding of the inside of his throat dealt with the gag reflex quite nicely, and so the watch... Throat goat? And so the watch went down easily. Gregory licked his lips mockingly as he leaned over the railing, still scanning the floor far below. A sign, a tell, a single mistake. His eyes were on full alert for any of those things. If you want to leave this place, he said, it'll literally be through my dead body. The chamber was silent, save for the soft swishing of the water as the eel things swam around. Gregory gripped the railing tight. From here on in, it was a game of resolve. Both of them knew that Gregory had reinforcements on the way, plenty of Sealy Rangers who could see right through May Miracle's ability. If she let them arrive, then her defeat was assured. Meanwhile, all Gregory had to do was stand here for long enough to achieve victory. Without a question, the mental pressure on his opponent was immense. If she didn't act first, she would lose. If she didn't discard her advantage, she would die. Gregory smiled to himself as he imagined the turmoil his enemy must have been in. This is the limit for a human being. You're trapped right now, aren't you? Not just within this room, but within the limits of your abilities, limits you can stretch but never truly exceed. It's awful, isn't it? Don't you feel disgusting, trapped in such a useless body? Bang! It's unbearable, Gregory spun around, his arm already folded into a blade, and deflected the incoming bullet, but when he went to follow up and counter, he found no target before him. Despite the level angle of the bullet, he was still alone on the walkway. Had she cloaked again? No, according to the file, the cloaking should have been deactivated when she attacked, and there had to be more of a cooldown than this. Then how? He realized just in time. A ricochet. Miracle had used the reinforced curved tank that surrounded the room in order to reflect her bullet, sending it flying towards Gregory from a deceptive angle. Now that Gregory was facing that way, Miracle exploded into motion, charging out from behind the cover of the autobrain and running directly at him with everything she had. Her eyes were burning with a furious resolve. Shit! Gregory spun on his heel once more, raising his gun to point at the incoming enemy. Pandurshi had hyped this gun up, but now would be the true test. A direct hit would be quite the show. He lifted his finger towards the trigger. Wait, why is she running at me? His finger curled around the trigger. Wouldn't her best move have been to shoot me in the back while I'm distracted? It would have been the most natural course of action, too. She intentionally decided to charge at me like this. Why? Is she trying to bait me into something? His finger did not pull the trigger. Her cloaking deactivates when she launches an attack, but how exactly does her ability define an attack? Would an act of sabotage count? Hepox is the holy land of firearms. They worship gunpowder gods over there. If anyone could do it, she could. The gun felt warm. What if she wasn't just hiding or trying to escape earlier? What if she was already making her preparations? At the last moment, Gregory hurled the pistol towards Miracle, and barely a second after the weapon had left his hand, it exploded. Whatever the woman had done to the weapon, it had caused a disastrous buildup of heat within the chassis. If Gregory had been holding it for even a second longer, he could have had his hand blown off. He leapt back, away from the spreading cloud of acrid smoke, and as he did, bang, bang, bang! 4 bullets zoomed through the smoke screen. Even with Miracle being unable to see Gregory, her aim was perfect. If the shots had hit, they surely would have dealt serious damage. If they hit. A gun had been an unnecessary crutch for Gregory Hazard from the beginning. Folding both of his arms into blades, he easily deflected the 4 shots, the bullet studding into the floor of the walkway around him instead. All that remained was the shooter. White smoke continued to spread out from the ruptured gun on the floor, but May Miracle was nowhere to be seen. Surely she wasn't hiding in that smoke, though. Given the properties of the gun, just making contact with that vapor would inflict nasty chemical burns. A thought occurred. A dull brick in Gregory's stomach. How long it had been since Miracle had deactivated her cooldown? 10 seconds? 15? What if that was the extent of her cooldown? His dread was proven valid just a moment later. Nothing appeared in front of him. There was no blip of vision where something ceased to be invisible. He just looked down, and realized that May Miracle was right before him, pressing the barrel of a revolver against his stomach. Bang! Paper Moon! Folding wasn't the only thing you could do with paper. Right as Miracle fired, Gregory twisted his torso, mitigating the damage and turning what would have been a gunshot into a long scrape against his abdomen. Even with the pain, Gregory grinned widely. He'd been keeping count after all. Most likely, after Miracle had killed the Sealy Rangers and cloaked for the first time, she'd taken the opportunity to reload her revolver. Any shots before that point were irrelevant. She'd fired once to distract Gregory, then 4 more times through the smokescreen, then once again with her point-blank attack. 6 shots in all. So now she was out. The blades that Gregory had made out of his hands danced through the air, slashing at his opponent. Miracle managed to weave past the first strike, but the second caught her on the shoulder. A high-pitched scream of pain rang through the air as blood sprayed across the walkway. May Miracle was a stealth specialist. She was strong enough to be counted among the Nebula, sure, but a head-on fight like this wasn't her forte. Add her exhaustion and deprivation on top of that, and Gregory's dominance was assured. His victory grew closer with every passing second. Still, he couldn't be careless. As he continued to advance, striking at Miracle again and again, grazing slashes opening new wounds in his opponent's body, he was very much aware of his enemy's cooldown. If he could take the interval from before as accurate, then Miracle could reactivate her cloaking about 15 seconds after deactivating it. That time had already passed while she'd been dodging his attacks, so she was making a conscious choice not to use it. That meant she was waiting for the perfect moment. Such an ability had more uses beyond sneaking around, after all. Miracle went on the attack. She flipped her revolver around in her hand, gripping it by the barrel, and swung the handle towards the side of Gregory's head. He went to duck, to let the blow sail over his head, but right before he did so, May Miracle vanished from his perception. His eyes widened as he froze for an instant. A feint! And then the handle of the revolver slammed into Gregory's temple. Just as Gregory had predicted, the cloaking had been used for a feint, but he'd underestimated the extent of it. By suddenly cloaking in the middle of a swing, Miracle had made him think she'd change her angle of attack, and that assumption had caused him to hesitate. In actuality, she'd simply continued with her original trajectory and allowed the cloaking to deactivate barely a second later. Gregory backed up, unfolding his blades and clutching his head with one hand. With the other, he first seized tight hold of Miracle's jacket, but when she kicked him away, he staggered back and grabbed the railing instead. It was obvious looking at him that he'd been thoroughly dazed by that hit to the head, his vision wavering as he kept tight hold. More than confusion, though, there was rage. He ground his teeth together, full of the fury of someone pulled down by one beneath them. "Miracle!" he snarled. May Miracle was an empty person. She knew that, in a very real sense, she was incomplete. There was something other people had, some vital spark that had been snuffed out from her when she was young, a mother bleeding out from shrapnel, and a father hanging from a rope. Were those images what had done it? She couldn't say. The necessary understanding of herself was something she also lacked. Her life was a path clouded in fog. She could barely see anything around her, but somehow she still knew with certainty the direction she would go. She pursued glory, but she didn't know why. She pursued wealth, but she didn't know why. She pursued victory, but deep down, she didn't know why. Under these circumstances, though, she didn't pursue anything at all. This time she retreated. May leapt off of the walkway, gripping hold of the bottom of the floor to swing onto the second level below. In terms of close quarters combat, she wasn't a match for Hazard. Once he saw through her tricks, it would be over. She took advantage of the brief freedom. Her weapon was empty, but her hands were well practiced. She reloaded her revolver, all 6 bullets, in the same time it took to breathe, and that was just in the nick of time. A spear came for her life. It came from the walkway above, piercing down through it and nearly getting her on top of her head. She rolled backwards to avoid the first blow, but more soon followed. The white spear crackled with aether as it retracted and lunged, again and again and again, each time opening a hole in the ceiling above her. May was forced to dance backwards to avoid the successive blows. This was Hazard's ability, Paper Moon. Just like he'd twisted his torso earlier, he'd now twisted his leg into a long spear, and he was driving it through the floor in pursuit of her. It was a smart choice. Hazard didn't want to risk exposing himself to more of her shots, so he was attacking from a position where she couldn't return fire. His blind strikes were getting more accurate each time, too. Sooner or later, if things went on like this, he'd get her. "I gotta reactivate cloaking." The ability activation accompanied the thought, but just as soon as her cloaking returned, May realized she'd miscalculated. The white aether that had been crackling around the spear suddenly wasn't confined just to it. Instead, that paperweight aether was coursing through the entire structure at the center of the room. Auto-brain, walkways, and all. He'd been ready for this. Her gut confirmed it. Something about this place was now extraordinarily dangerous. There was no time for strategy or complex tactics. The only thing her brain could latch onto was the oldest animal instinct. May leapt off the side of the walkway. The unfolded world! And in doing so, saved her own life. The auto-brain, the walkways, as one, they suddenly changed shape, becoming a chaotic mass of spikes that surely would have torn her to shreds. Sparks flew from the auto-brain as the sudden change in configuration thoroughly decommissioned it. The metal walkways screeched as they were twisted illogically. In a single moment, a murderous tree had been shaped in the center of the control center. May prepared to hit the ground. With her infusion, she didn't necessarily have to worry too much about injury, but you could never be too careful. She really didn't want to lose track of Hazard in the chaos either, but... oh, there was no risk of that. Hazard had leapt off of the walkway too, right as he'd used his ability on it, and now he was plummeting to the ground as well. He was upside down, but May could still make out the smirk on his face, and more than that, she could tell exactly what he was looking at. Her. His leg was normal again, his blades returned to hands, only the tips of his fingers just slightly folded into claws. His aether infusion was minimal. It was the same way he'd seen through May's cloaking in the first place, by weakening himself enough that it wasn't effective. Well, that was fine. That just meant he'd let his defenses down at last. Still in midair, May pointed a revolver at her fellow falling one. That was when May Miracle saw it. The look on his face. The expression that made some distant primitive part of her brain recoil. A wide grin, made ugly by malice. Everything happened, all at once. White Aether roared, his hand folded, and a blade like a scythe slashed. Whew! You want to take over?
Yeah, sure. May Miracle's ability wasn't difficult to get around at all, once you understood the mechanics of it. When she was using it, those heavily influenced by Aether would be unable to perceive her. The efficacy of the cloaking technique decreased the less infusion the observer had. By reducing his own infusion to the minimum, Gregory could see through it just fine. Perhaps his enemy had thought that was somehow still to her advantage. But what was stopping him from just using his weaker state to spot his targets, then restoring his infusion right before he launched his attack? Being unable to see the enemy for just a second wasn't that big of a deal. Everyone blinked, after all. Gregory flipped in the air and landed on his feet, appreciating the results of his gambits. The attack he'd just unleashed had taken him one step into the realm of the Aether burn. Steam rose from his body and a faint ache pulsed in his bones. The air pressure from his slash had even struck the tank, leaving a deep gash in the glass. If it wasn't as reinforced as it was, the whole thing surely would have shattered there and then. And then there was the enemy sprawled across from him. May Miracle had twisted her body in the air at the last moment, avoiding the worst of the blow, but even the best of it was nothing to scoff at. Her right arm had been ravaged, scorched by proximity to the strike, blood pouring from the limp limb. Gregory smirked to himself as he rose up fully. "I doubt you'll be reloading again with an arm like that," he teased. "You'd better make those last 6 bullets count." Miracle panted for breath, glaring up at him from her knees, and without a word she pointed her gun at his face. He rolled his eyes at the futile gesture. How sad. This woman was about to die, and she was still engaging in clichés like this. "Oh, forget it," he said. "Even when I'm like this, I can still dodge such an obvious shot. You need to booster shot." Indeed. So long as Gregory knew the trajectory and timing, he could have dodged a bullet. But May Miracle did not fire a bullet. She fired a bolt of her own Aether, zooming at the speed of thought, and it struck Gregory head-on before he even realised she'd fired. He only realised he'd even been hit when he blinked, and May Miracle vanished from his perception. He narrowed his eyes in annoyance. It didn't take a genius to work out what happened, and the file had mentioned this anyway. May Miracle had a second ability, Booster Shot. It intensified the Aether of the target for a few seconds, bringing weaker targets under the effects of Miracle's cloaking. It seemed that, in her desperation, she'd opted to use that tactic here too. Moron. Even if she intensified it, this was still his Aether. It was easy for him to just reduce it again and bypass her cloaking. In fact, he did just that without even moving a muscle. Miracle was still right there in front of him, still on her knees, still pointing her gun, still bleeding. She'd accomplished nothing. Gregory Hazard took a step forward, and May Miracle pulled the trigger. Gregory had been prepared for another bullet like all the ones fired so far, something he could easily block or deflect. Any other time he would have been correct, but this time he had looked away. That mistake would cost him. May Miracle's revolver exploded with the force of a cannon, a colossal blast of heat and force surging through the air towards Gregory. He went to leap back, he went to get out of the way, he went to escape, but the second he did, the little Aether around his body disappeared completely. Huh? The blast struck him head on. Can I put this last little bit to you?
Sure. A few seconds early. So I imagine that's because he reduced his Aether after the boost, and then the boost wore off, so it went to null. A few seconds earlier. The instant after Booster Shot hit Gregory Hazard, May Miracle put the gun to her own head and pulled the trigger. Persona! Booster Shot, Booster Shot, Booster Shot, Booster Shot. Just because this ability was designed to power up her enemies, it didn't mean she couldn't use it on herself. Using powers in unintended ways was the very foundation of Aether combat. Just like when she used it on an external target, the boost would only last a few seconds, but she'd make it count. Hazard seemed pretty intent on the strategy he'd come up with to get around her cloaking. That made it easy to predict what he'd do once hit with Booster Shot. He'd just lower his Aether infusion again, which was exactly what May wanted. Assuming Hazard lowered his infusion to the very limit again, then in the moment that Booster Shot surplus disappeared, he wouldn't have any Aether infusion at all. That would be the same moment that May would fire her own attack, powered up by 4 uses of Booster Shot. Even if the blow wasn't fatal, it would surely be debilitating.
We got a little diagram.
This is why you didn't want me to scroll. Yeah. Is this Gregory Hazard? Yeah. I love this. Did you make this?
I did. This is by me.
Minimum Aether infusion. He can see me. Booster Shot enhances Aether. Oh, he can't see me. Nice try. Reduces infusion further. He can see me. Booster Shot wears off. Oh no, I'm finished. He can see me, but he's defenseless. Check mark, check mark, check mark. I love this. This is some JoJo Part 7
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
The emojis.
When they bring out the little chibi diagram.
This is the best thing ever. That's so cute. You need to do this more often. She had judged her opponent correctly. Just as she'd predicted, Gregory lowered his infusion, looked her right in the eye, and gone flying back as she filled him full of lead. Well, doesn't she only have 1 bullet left?
Well,
I don't know, full of lead. A little bit of lead. One bullet.
No, she used... Yeah.
Yeah, because booster shot eats the bullet to power.
Well, yeah,
her
she
up.
hit him with one to one booster shot. Then she used 4 on herself
Four on herself, and
to
then
power up
so
the final bullet. So she's used all her bullets effectively.
Yeah, no, it's just full of lead is like a metaphor because you're like unloading a clip into someone, but she's just hitting him with one big bullet. The resultant cloud of smoke devoured half the room, and the crack of Hazard's body hitting the tank bounced across the walls, slowly taking care of her injured arm. He was not infused at all, so he should be like dead, right?
Yeah.
May rose to her feet. Her breathing was labored, her skin clammy. She wasn't out of the woods yet. One of her arms was out of the picture. Her revolver was out of bullets, and her gun's probably fucked too. And she wouldn't believe Hazard was dead until she saw his corpse. As if that wasn't bad enough, the room was still locked down, and Hazard's reinforcements would be here any minute. But that didn't mean she would give up. She couldn't give up. May Miracle was an empty person, but even so... I don't know what's beyond my bullseye, she thought, steeling herself. But damn, I must want it real bad. Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
May Miracle. I can't wait for 2 chapters from now when after all that she's gonna get like fucking I don't think so by Nyan.
I was hiding
from behind.
I was hiding inside Gregory's body. He is the throat goat after all.
Sorry. I just wanted to see if you could win, but I think I've had enough now.
Gregory
Don't
forged
worry,
me.
Gregory-chan. I put my bugs inside him.
Top tier
lice.
combat tactics. Eat a watch. JoJo last move.
That's so fun. This has been a very fun fight so far. I like this a lot. All right. Rock Shark asks, does permutation always involve 11 participant, or can there be more or less?
There can be more and there can be less.
Lan asks, who named a Clima?
I figured they asked Cadmon, he just like came up with something off the top of his head real quick.
Yeah, looking at a can. Clima meat. Like, fucking chill.
He wasn't listening to what they said. He just like said that, and they were like, "Oh, was he answering?"
New theory. They presented him a book of baby names, and it was alphabetical, so a Clima was at the top, and he just pointed at it. He's like, "That'll do." Rurum asks, are anti-Aether sentiments as seen with Rakebone and Maxim common throughout the galaxy, especially since such a low % of people are Aether users?
They're surprisingly like fringe beliefs, I would say.
Yeah.
Especially like with how hardcore like Maximum, for example, is about it.
Yeah. Maxim is totally justified in his hate, though. I feel like Aether did low-key ruin the world. Aether is like the social media of Aetheral Space.
It's AI.
Yeah, Aether. Weiser asks, what places besides Monadera used to be on the Central Governing Council but aren't anymore?
Quite a few. Most of the slots are pretty revolving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, Adrost is a fairly recent addition, I would say.
I love how this next question, Weiser defined who the character was in case he forgot, which
I would
can
remember.
totally
I would remember this one.
Alright. Weiser asks, did Katashi Oliphant Hidaka, Keiko's father, the disgraced one of the special officers met in Arc 6, ever wake up from his coma?
He did not.
Is he still being on life support, or did they just give up?
I think they gave up.
They pulled the plug on Katashi Oliphant Hidaka?
Maybe.
So
well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Why was he in the coma again?
Because he got blown up. Because as he was there.
JT asks, who would the main cast's literally me characters be from other media? Like who? I guess who they would identify with or kin or whatever
Nine
online.
would be like, Himmel the hero. He's like me.
No, we're the same person.
I do
We
imagine
both want
him
what's
with
best for
Himmel's voice, to
everyone.
be honest.
Yeah. What's Himmel's voice again in the English dub?
It's really like, I've not seen the English dub.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, who else? Who would their literally me's be? I feel like Skipper would think he's the guy from like Terminator or like Die Hard.
Maybe. Yeah, someone from like Die Hard. Yeah.
Or Rambo. Who would Dragon be?
I don't know.
Probably some underdog who was also has a tortured past. This is a hard question.
It is, yeah.
Because you have to compare fake characters and who they would see themselves in with, like, the flawed way us humans do. It's tricky.
I think it would be someone who's like, it's like a corporate star. If it started at the start of Story Dragon, it would be someone, I don't know, like I don't know. Someone who's like out for themselves, like trying to get good life.
I think Ruth is the easiest one. I think she'd see Maki post Slaughter of the Clan and be like, that's me.
I think for Kid Ruth, it would have been October Jones.
Yeah, that's true.
She's like, I hope I never meet this person as a zombie who hates my guts.
Oh, wait, did that break her heart?
She doesn't know.
She's like, no, my hero. Oh, that's true. Weiser asks, is Monodari responsible for the Ultraviolets having color-based team names?
Yeah, it has like Monodari roots. They were one of the factions that sort of created it together.
Hell yeah. One more and then we'll call it. Lan asks, are the other planets in our solar system, like in real life, like Mars, all that, are they inhabited, colonized? I know Mars had a different name you gave it or Mercury was, I think, you gave a different name.
Yeah, I would say they're inhabited, but not to a huge degree at this point in time. They're sort of like...
So they're not as trash as home, but they're still like, this is where the poor
These are the backwater planets.
Yeah, this is the rural planets!
You got the backwater planets, you got the moon, which no one can go on, because there's a shield that no one can get through, and it's... Yeah. And then you got Earth, which is like a wasteland, and also like some eldritch stuff going on.
And the sun's probably like, struggling.
So you can go to home, and like there's the wasteland bit of home which we saw Cadman in, and then you go deep into the city, and that's when you see the like unspeakable shit.
Do they have like tourism where they like make up shit about the past?
Not on home. No, you don't want to go home.
Yeah, don't go home, bro.
Don't go home. Don't fall to nostalgia.
Are there any researchers on home, or is it fully just like, no, this place is food bar? Like the guy is in the Antarctica who's sitting in a cabin?
No, you don't go into like the proper home. You don't go there.
Damn.
You
stay in orbit.
Yeah, we saw like Mayan's experience was like, even he's like, I don't fucking going back there.
Yeah, you use a satellite and you watch from afar in orbit.
Well, you don't want to see that shit, maybe. The act of seeing it could be bad.
Oh my god. Alright, let's call it there, I think. And, so guys, this chapter, if you liked it as much as I did, keep that review positive. If you didn't, let's kill Tanhoney.
I drew chibi art for this.
You did. It's actually pretty key. If you're only listening to this episode, I genuinely beg you, just read it at least and scroll to like page. I don't know how it works on Raw Road, but towards the bottom, and look at it. It's actually really cute. All right, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.